Well, the trouble with that question is that it's far from straightforward. There are a number of different parts to the answer. And I think the way to start really is to talk about a rather typical set of events. You have decided to start your business. You're excited. So you run down to your local bank and you sit down with the loan officer and you share your excitement about your business vision. And you tell the banker that you need to borrow X amount of money. And the banker looks at you very, very carefully and says, well, we don't loan money to new businesses. And you go like, oh, I didn't know that. I thought that's how businesses started. And the banker said, well, yes, but you have to have a little track record first. So here's what I suggest you do. Go home, look at your own resources, and pull together resources from other places and get started. And come back then and see us in 6 months, once you have a little track record. So you think to yourself, well, that's good advice. So you go home and you start your business. First thing you do is you take your savings and you quickly run through them because you didn't have any idea how fast you would go through that amount of money. So you then take an equity loan on the house because you have a little equity on it because you've owned it for a while. And boy, next thing you know, you've plowed through that. You sit down and talk with mom and dad, and they're willing because they really share your belief in this business to give you part of their retirement fund. So now they do that. You turn around after you've gone through that, and you go through the other 2 F's they say in starting a business. It's the 3 F's: family, friends, and fools. Because a new business is a very risky startup. That's the whole proposition. And it happens over and over and over again. And as soon as that credit score drops below about 630 or 640, nobody's going to loan you any money. Not even the SBA is not going to guarantee your loan. The U.S. Small Business Administration, or the SBA, is a very important business development force in the U.S. economy. And the myth is that you go to the SBA and they'll give you money. They'll give you a grant to start your business. The reality is that, to the best of my knowledge, there isn't anybody who's going to give you a grant to start your business. And the second reality is the SBA doesn't really loan anybody any money, aside from such big programs as disaster loans and some other such things. But they're not really on the business development trail that we're talking about. What the SBA does instead is act in a very important capacity of guaranteeing risk. You work with a bank. Your risk is unacceptable to the bank under their normal lending criteria, but because the SBA is willing to accept a certain higher risk threshold through this guarantee, they will allow folks that don't meet normal lending criteria to receive loans. So the SBA guarantees your bank loan. There are a lot of financing alternatives that aren't readily available to most people. One of the things that is so important is that there are a lot of federal, state, and local economic development programs that are focused on job creation or business development that aren't particularly visible to the folks that are trying to start a business. There are programs from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, that are all geared to achieving various kinds of social or economic goals that will support business development. Business folks don't often know this. My advice is to seek out the state and local-based economic development folks and talk to them about some of these programs and about whether or not you might qualify as a user of any of these programs. One of them is, for instance, using a commercial mortgage. And if you've been in business for a while, you own a building that your business occupies, you you forget about the fact that your building is an asset that you can leverage in terms of your further business development. So you can develop a commercial mortgage, and in order to better understand that, in fact, you can download a free guide to commercial mortgages that is listed in the SME Toolkit. Another interesting financing program is, let's say you're a small restaurant and your fryolator and freezer bite the dust on the same day. You're in big trouble. You have to buy new ones. Your credit is terrible, though, because for whatever reason you have terrible credit. What do? You turn to a program that will provide what's known as a merchant cash advance. Because you take credit cards in your business, they will loan you money. Actually, they buy your future credit card receipts, and you pay them back based on the future trail of credit card business. So you're able now to have credit for your business that you otherwise wouldn't qualify for. The lender is secured because they're processing your credit card receipts, and they take a small percentage out to repay the loan. A factor buys your accounts receivable, gives you the money at a discounted rate. They collect the money. You have your cash flow, and so if you're in a business where you have to give accounts receivable credit, then you have the ability to keep your cash flow alive. It's a very common tool, and it's one that a lot of businesses don't think to use. The answer to that comes from developing a cash flow forecast. And the cash flow forecast is a very straightforward process. You have certain expenses that you have to pay. Some of them are fixed, and they have to be paid whether you have any business or not. Some of them are variable, and they occur only because you're doing business. And on the other side of both of those, then, are revenues coming in. And we expect a business, when it starts up, to have a growth curve where by definition, there aren't any sales on day one, and you then gradually build those sales, and it gets to a point where you cross then a cash flow break even, where the revenues from the business equal the amount of funds that you have to spend to get that business started. The amount of funding that you have to spend to get that business started is the amount of financing that you need. And thereby my advice to really challenge yourself every step of the way and ask, do I really have to spend this money?
For more information on the topics discussed in this presentation, please access the following links.